There's a lot of controversy around the book, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, and specifically the topic of whether adult children should see their parents less if they're emotionally immature or cut off all ties. And that seems to be very offensive to some people. So I thought I would take a moment to talk about what's happening in the brain when you spend time with someone who was emotionally immature when you were a child, and why we need to talk about the significance of being around that person when you were young is because we are brains that get habituated. And so not only do we become habituated, we use simple cues in the present moment, and the brain will perform functions that it used to perform in the past, in the present. And so for the adult child of the emotionally immature parent, when they are around them in the present moment as two adults, what can happen for the adult child is that that brain will think now is then, and it will start to flood their brain with the emotional experience of childhood, and specifically the trauma response, the fight, flight, freeze response. And so for that individual, even though they are trying their best to stay calm, to stay disconnected, to stay neutral around that parent, what their brain is doing is their brain is going, now's like then, and you're not safe. And so I'm going to send you into a state of fight flight, which we experience as anxiety, or I'm going to put you down into hypoarousal, which is the freeze response, and you're going to collapse, and you're going to dissociate, and you're going to go numb, or you're going to not be able to think, and you're going to be scrambled intellectually. And none of these things that happen are intended. It's what this automatic functioning brain does, and how we get the diagnosis, for example, of post-traumatic stress disorder, because the brain has this ability to create these patterns and take cues and go, now is like then, and we're flooded. And so with some situations in psychotherapy, when the therapist says, wow, I see that you are being flooded with feeling every time you're around that parent. And it really puts you in a compromised, either emotionally or cognitive position. And for some people that can last days. Maybe you need to be around that stimulus less often so that you can function at your best. Or maybe you have to be much more selective about how and for how long you're around that individual so that your nervous system doesn't recreate these very powerful emotional reactions that can really hinder a person in their daily life. So I just wanted to give that explanation of what happens in the brain and why therapists might encourage certain clients to be very selective about how and when they see that parent. Certainly leave a comment if you have your own strategies that you want to share for how you deal with lowering that traumatic response when you're around emotionally immature parents, and ask any questions if you'd like any follow-up.